Hi, I'm Brenda Jones, and today we're going to be making a paper album quilt. Before we get to that, I wanted to show you a couple of quilts that I've made in the past. Although they're not album quilts, they use some of the same ideas. This quilt is of the history of aviation, early aviation. Each block or section of this quilt that goes together to make a very large blanket is a triangle. Each triangle has an early airplane. These are not photographs of airplanes, but simplified pictures. So here's one. This quilt is a quilt of different layers of fish in the ocean. It's made to open up. Each block is a square. Here's another one. And each fish is made up of different sections or different kinds of fabric. Your paper album quilt will tell 7 days of the week, something that you did during those 7 days, plus 2 extra days. So we have a total of 9 blocks. Each block will have a symbol in it, a picture of that event that you did during the day or that activity. What's a symbol, you might ask? It's a very simplified picture, so it doesn't have a lot of detail. It's easy. You have symbols on your phone. You have symbols on your computer. You might have a very simple symbol that tells you about Google or a game that you want to play. It doesn't have a lot of detail. It's very simple. So I'm going to ask you to stop the video at this point. You're going to look at what ideas you might have, and you have part 1 on your handout to complete. Then come back to the video. I've moved to my studio now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the paper album quilt that we're going to make today, and a little bit about album quilts. You have a handout that refers to a website that shows an album quilt made by the artist Elizabeth Hopkins in the mid-1800s. If you look at that quilt, you will see that it's made up of a number of blocks, and each block says something important to Elizabeth Hopkins. It might be where she lives, the person she was married to, a job. It might be an object. So we're going to look at 7 things to make a block of for you. You will consider some activity that you did over the course of a week. What did you do on Monday? What did you do on Tuesday? Etc. We're going to make those from paper. We're going to make our blocks from paper. We're going to add in 2 other blocks. Those 2 blocks will be something about you. It might be where you live. It might be a dream that you have. It might be a place you'd like to go, something that you see. So we'll have a total of 9 paper blocks. Each block will be 6 by 6 inches. And in each of those blocks, you're going to design a symbol or an icon that tells what you did in those 7 days plus the 2 extra blocks. I designed a symbol of walking my dog. I do that every day, but let's say that's Monday. Monday is my day to walk my dog. I want to make my symbol simple, like a simple icon that can be cut out of paper and pasted down. Here's my example of my dog. This is my dog block. You can see it's very simple, and he's holding a ball in his mouth. So I'm going to ask you to stop your video at this point. You'll have instructions on your paper. You're going to make 7 symbols, 1 for each day of the week, plus 2 extra. And before you do that, you'll be looking at the album quilt by Elizabeth Hopkins and identifying some of the ways she made stories. So we'll pause here, you'll look at the quilt, and you'll make some icons. Okay, I'm ready to make my album quilt squares. So I've already made my sketches of the things I wanted to have on my album quilt. Here's one of my dog, as we talked about before. I have a stack of packaging, cardboard packaging from things like cereal boxes, water boxes. I have some drawing utensils, a pen, a pencil. Here I have a ruler, scissors, glue. I have chosen to make my background squares in green. So I have two different colors of green squares here, a lighter green and a darker green. And they're all 6 inches by 6 inches. I have 9 squares right here. I have a piece of sandpaper right here. I'm going to take my sandpaper and just fold it and tear off a little piece. So I'm going to put my big piece of sandpaper to the side, and I have the smaller piece of sandpaper. I have a cake mix box right here that hasn't been sanded yet. So I'm going to take my sandpaper, move my glue out of the way. I'm just going to sand off some of the image. Just lightly sand it. My sandpaper is a pretty light grade of sandpaper. It's 150, but any sandpaper will do. What I want to do is get the image off of this just a little bit so that my focus is more on the color of the package than it is on the image itself. Here's a package, I'll show you this, that's already been sanded down. So it was a water box, and you can see that now some of the imagery is gone, and here we're focusing just on kind of the color. So this reddish color is a good complementary color to my greens. So I'm going to just take my scissors right here and cut off a piece of this packaging. Chose this part right here. Lay this to the side. I'm going to take my dog picture and lay him on top of my packaging. So I think I'll use that section right there. If you have tape, you could tape your picture down, but I think I can do this without taping it down. I have a simple icon of a dog that I drew, or a simple symbol of this dog. I'm going to cut him apart, cut my pattern out. So what I'm thinking about is being real simple with my pattern, choosing some area of color on my packaging that doesn't emphasize the product, and then trying to match my color all the way through my designs. So I'm going to stay with mostly reds because they are a complementary color to green, and arrange my patterns on my blocks. So here's the dog body right here. I'll set him down on my green background for a moment. I'm going to take then my dog head, and I might choose a whole different part of the package so he looks a little bit different. This is a different part. I'm going to lay my dog head on that just to give a little bit of variety so it doesn't look like it was all cut out of the same thing. Now remember, if we were back in the 1800s and making an album quilt, this would probably be made out of fabric and it would all be stitched together. But we're just learning a little bit about it, and we're not trying to make a whole quilt. We're being inspired by that. So I'm going to lay my dog head down here, and then all I have left is this little ball that goes in his mouth. And I might choose something a little bit different for that. Maybe, oh look, on this package I have already a ball shape, and it's bluish. I'm going to go ahead and give my dog a blue ball, just to add a little bit of difference. So, although I want to keep my complementary colors as much as possible, to have some accents of a different color is not a bad thing, so don't feel like that's something that you have to avoid. So I've laid my dog down on my green paper where I think I want it. He's going to have a ball in his mouth like that. And then I'll just glue it down. Now remember, when you glue things, you don't have to worry about getting lots of glue. I'm just going around the outside here. Just enough to hold him down. So his body will go right here. Now I'll get his head, little strip of glue, not very much. head. Goes like that. You can see that in my pattern I left a little place which might be a collar. And then I'm going to put the ball in his mouth like this. So here's my block number 1 of my dog. I've got 8 more blocks right here to do. My other patterns include things like a mountain. I have eating ice cream for one day. That was something that was significant. Here's my picture of where I live, a mountain. I'll be cutting that out to put on my block. And then I'll do probably ordering something online. That was a part of my day. Several different things like that. So I'm going to stop the video right now. You're going to sand your boxes. You're going to look at your pattern pieces. You'll cut them out of your sanded boxes, and then you're going to be gluing them down on background like this. So take a few minutes, get all of your 9 squares glued together, and then come back and join me about how we'll put our 9 together and a few other questions. And then we will have created our own and green. I have a couple of different greens. I have some other accent colors. So I'm just going to show you my 9 squares, show you that they're very simple. Here's one day of doing laundry, eating ice cream, sleeping in late, a little bed and window. So they're very simple, like icons on your phone. I live in the mountains, a little stream, so this is like the block about me. I paint or do some kind of artwork almost every day, but this is maybe my Tuesday of doing artwork. I have a block about one of my dreams or one of my hopes this summer. I'm hoping that I can maybe go up in a hot air balloon sometime. This is about listening to music, so some music notes, very simple. I had to pay some bills, so I have some math problems here about paying bills. 8 plus 4 equals 12. My bills are more than $12, but nonetheless. And then my original one about my dog and taking him for a walk. So what I'm going to do now is glue all of my 9 blocks down. I've decided what order I want them in. I want my balloon in the middle, and I have 5 blocks of darker green right here and lighter green in each of the corners. So decide how you want your blocks to go. Maybe you want them to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and 2 blocks about you, or however you want them to go. I took a piece of newspaper here, a large newspaper, and I'm going to use that for my background for my album quilt. So there's a little border between each block here. You could use any kind of paper that you want for your background, or if you don't have that, that's fine. Just let your blocks sit on your table and you can look at them and talk about them as we do in our next segment. So for right now, I'm going to glue these down. Just take my bottle of glue again. Very thin band of glue on the back. And then lay my blocks down. The newspaper is a perfect size for my 6 by 6 inch blocks, still leaving a border between each one. But if you want something else, do that. If you don't have any paper as big at home right now to be able to do this with, that's fine too. So for right now, I'm going to turn the video off, or you can pause the video, and then we'll come back to just answer a couple of quick questions. Here's my finished album quilt. You can see the newspaper behind acting as a border around each of my individual blocks. And you can see how they all fit together with a complementary set of colors. the red patterns against the green backgrounds. Now, it's important, I think, to think a little bit about how our album quilt that's made of paper and packaging differs from the album quilts of the mid-1800s, but at the same time has some of the same kinds of ideas and ways of going about putting it together. So again, each block tells its own story. Each set of blocks or each individual block has its own set of colors. Again, in this case, my complementary colors are basically red and green. Each block tells a little bit of a story. In the old album quilts, sometimes each block was made by a different person, a different seamstress, and put together as one large block. And ours is smaller, of course. These would have been made big enough to put on a bed. So I hope today that you enjoyed making a album quilt out of paper and packaging and thinking a little bit about things you do each day and considering how to make an idea into a symbol or an icon. How this is a very simple balloon that could have been much more complicated, but still kind of reads as a balloon. It could be the same kind of image that is an icon on your computer or phone, so very simply made. So have a good day, think about album quilts, and enjoy.